this video, we're going to go over an example of how to format an essay answer to the February 2015 Civil Procedure MEE question. If you haven't already watched the video prior to this, how to structure an MEE answer, stop this video and go back and watch that first. This video is essentially a continuation of that. Additionally, before reviewing this video, if you haven't already, you should first read the February 2015 Civ Pro MEE question, as well as the answer that's made available on the National Conference of Bar Examiners website. And what we've done is we've given you the link to go directly there. So again, if you haven't already done that, please stop this video and go do that. I will not be reading the question or the answer to you, and you just won't get much out of this video if you don't know what we're talking about. Finally, some other housekeeping things to get out of the way. The high-scoring student response that we've included on this handout comes from the Minnesota Board of Law Examiners website. The Minnesota Board of Law Examiners website is an excellent resource because they publish or make available good student answers or high-scoring student answers, whatever you prefer to call them. So again, we've linked you to directly where we pulled this answer from. So when you continue to study, if you're looking for other good examples, you can check out that website and see if you find some that might help you out. So now that that's out of the way, what you're looking at here is a representative good student answer or good examinee response to this February 2015 civil procedure question. So again, we're not providing you the question or the answer. We provided you the link so that you can go and read that on your own before you watch this video. The goal of this video is to walk you through how you should be structuring a response to that question. And we thought the best way to do that was to give you a real life example of what a real life examinee wrote in response to this essay question on bar exam day. So the one thing that you probably notice first is all of this color coding that's going on this document. And what we've done is just attempted to give you a visual representation of good formatting. We learned in the previous video that the best way to structure an MEE response is one that allows the grader to quickly read and figure out that you've addressed all of the things that you're supposed to be addressing in the question. In other words, organization is really, really important. We find the best way to organize an essay answer is using IRAC, or the Issue, Rule, Analysis, Conclusion format. And this examinee's response does exactly that. So what I've done here is I've highlighted in green the issues or the headings, and then in yellow is the rule statement. In kind of this turquoise blue color is the analysis, and in gray is the conclusion. So for instance, just looking at this first issue that the examinee put together, it's perfect. It goes issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. The only thing I might change about this answer in terms of formatting is you could insert a paragraph break between the rule and the analysis and the conclusion. Again, you don't have to. It's kind of like a stylistic preference. But in my opinion, by inserting that paragraph break between the rule and the analysis, and again between the analysis and the conclusion, it just makes it a little bit easier for that grader to see that you've touched upon each relevant portion. And also it makes your answer look longer. And remember that bar exam graders are human. So the longer your answer looks, the likely, the easier it is for them to give it a higher score. But again, it comes down to preference. So what I want to do is discuss this student answer with you in a little bit of greater depth to discuss why it's likely considered a good student answer or a high scoring response. So in this February 2015 Civ Pro question, there were 3 things that you were asked to discuss. The first is the motion to dismiss for the third-party complaint regarding insufficient service of process. The second issue was the motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. And the third and final issue was the motion to dismiss for improper joinder. So here you can see this examinee addressed all 3 things. There are 3 green headings. Each corresponds to the call of the question. So this is perfect. We always tell you to structure your answer around the call of the question, and this answer does just that. And you'll notice that the answer stops. This means that the examinee did not include any extraneous information, which again is the goal. If you are including extra information, you're likely just wasting your time. You'll look disorganized, and again, the graders can't give you points for something that the question wasn't testing. So here, right off the bat, this examinee did a stellar job of structuring its answer around the call of the question. So let's look at this first issue. Your job as the examinee is essentially to evaluate whether or not service of process was done properly under the rules. Because the question tells us in the fact pattern that the party filed a motion to dismiss claiming the service of process was not proper. So you need to assess under the facts if it was or wasn't. And what the fact pattern tells us here is that Medforms served the opposing party, the company they call it, their CEO. And they're claiming that this was not proper. And the fact pattern also gave us some facts that in state A and state B, those state laws say that service of process is only proper if made upon the company's secretary. And in our fact pattern here, our fact pattern tells us that Medform served the company's CEO, so not the secretary. So essentially, that is the argument that because state A and state B's laws regarding service of process were not followed, that it wasn't proper. However, this examinee was not tricked because what the federal rules of civil procedure say, they say that service of process is proper if you follow the state law where the court sits or the state law where service of process is effectuated or the federal rules. And under the federal rules, you're allowed to serve an officer of an entity. And it's pretty clear that a CEO is considered an officer of an entity. And therefore, service of process here complied with the federal rules, even though it didn't comply with the state rules. And that's okay. You don't have to be in compliance with both state and federal rules for it to be proper. This examinee knew that and stated that quite well. Here, the examinee was not super explicit about the state law requirements, but it was explicit about the federal rules of civil procedure, service of process requirements. Here, the student wrote, under the federal rules of civil procedure, service of process may be personally delivered to the individual, substituted service on an agent or individual of a reasonable age at the individual's regular address, or service may be mailed to the individual. And if the individual responds to that service, it is considered a waiver of service of process. A corporation may be served process by personally delivering the process to an agent of the corporation at the corporation's headquarters. So to stop there, this rule statement, as I mentioned, is not perfect, but it's good enough. It gets to the point that under the federal rules, we have the ability to serve an officer or an agent of the entity. The examinee goes on to analyze it. And I really like the signal that the examinee uses. They say, in this instance. So again, while they don't provide a paragraph break, it's a pretty clear indicator to the grader that they're about to discuss the relevant facts. So this is great. I would recommend you get in the habit of doing the same. So they say that in this instance, the service of process was proper because the service was personally delivered to the chief executive officer or the CEO at the corporate headquarters. This properly gave the company notice of Medform's third-party complaint and claims against it. Okay, good. So again, they stuck to the relevant facts and its analysis is short and sweet, but again, it's good. It contains what we need. Finally, the gray indicates the conclusion. And again, it's to the point, which is perfect. Your conclusion doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out thing. Here, it's just a sentence, which is sufficient. The examinee writes, the court should deny the company's motion to dismiss for insufficient service of process. So again, while this is formatted quite well, as I mentioned, the rule statement's not perfect. It adds a little bit of information you don't need, but it is still pertinent to service of process generally. And this rule statement doesn't even encompass much about the state law. But again, it touches upon what is relevant and how this CEO was in fact served. So this is generally well done. You can tell that the person knew the rules as it relates to service of process pretty well. So getting to that second issue, which is all about subject matter jurisdiction. And what you'll notice here is I too highlighted this portion of the response, yellow indicating rule, that blue teal color indicating the analysis, and gray indicating conclusion. What you'll notice that the student did, or the examinee did in response to this issue, is it goes rule, analysis, rule, a little bit of analysis, and then analysis to conclusion. I find that sometimes with subject matter jurisdiction questions that happens because there are multiple moving parts, and sometimes it's easier to give a rule and then analyze it and then carry on and give the other portion of the rule and then analyze it. And it appears to me that that's exactly what this examinee did. So while it's not perfect IRAC format, it's still very easy to follow. So if I had to critique this, I would encourage the student in the future to maybe put all of their rules together, or maybe have some subheadings to break this up. That way, maybe there's a little bit less of back and forth between rule and analysis. But again, this is a good example that you don't need a perfect answer to get a good score. Because again, this is not organizationally perfect. But again, this was chosen as a good representative answer. So hopefully that's encouraging to you to know that your response doesn't have to be perfect to do decent and to pass this test. So as it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction issue here, again, your job was to evaluate whether or not subject matter jurisdiction is proper, because again, the argument is that it isn't, or that there is not subject matter jurisdiction. And here, kind of the overarching issue is that this third-party complaint is a breach of contract complaint, which means it's a state law issue. So in order to get through the door of federal court, we're going to need to satisfy diversity jurisdiction. And remember, diversity jurisdiction requires the parties on each side of the V to be diverse from one another, and the amount in controversy must exceed $75,000. Here, we're specifically told that Medform, one of the parties here, is incorporated in state A, and the facts lead you to believe that their headquarters is also in state A, and the company that they sue, they are domiciled or from state B, because again, that is where the fact pattern tells you they're incorporated, and their headquarters are also indicated to be in state B. So this means the parties are diverse, and the amount that is alleged in terms of damages is $500,000. So here, kind of the quick answer to this question is that this motion to dismiss should be denied because there is subject matter jurisdiction in the form of diversity. So getting to the student answer, starting with the yellow, the student leads with their rule, which is great. The student kind of starts broad and gets narrow. They tell us that a federal court has subject matter jurisdiction over a claim if, one, the parties are diverse and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000, or two, the claim involves a federal law question. Then the student or the examinee kind of reverts to the analysis of those basic rules. Here, the examinee tells us that the woman's original claim is a sexual harassment and sex discrimination claim in violation of federal law. So very quickly, the student gets to the point that the original claim is properly filed because there's federal question jurisdiction. And while this is really not what the question's testing, at least the student didn't spend too much time on it. You can see that the student quickly pivots and starts to talk about the third-party complaint or the real issue. The student writes, however, Medform's third-party complaint against the company is based on a breach of contract claim, alleging $500,000 in damages. Because a breach of contract claim is a state law claim, the parties must be diverse and the amount in controversy requirement must be met in order for the state aid district court to have subject matter jurisdiction. So here we can see again the student kind of pivoted to discuss what was specifically being tested, and then provides us, turning to the yellow, with some more rule. Here the student gets into telling us how we figure out where people are from or how we can analyze diversity jurisdiction. So this is good. Whenever we see subject matter jurisdiction tested, specifically diversity, this is something that you need to define or spell out for the grader. So here the student writes, the party's residence for purposes of determining whether they are diverse is based on their domicile and intent to stay. The student then analyzes the woman, which again is not entirely relevant, but then the student pivots to discuss a corporation's domicile, which is relevant because that is who we are assessing, Medform and the company. The student explains that a corporation's domicile is determined where the company is incorporated, or where the headquarters is located. A corporation's headquarters is based on where their nucleus of the corporation is located. So again, this is almost perfect. The student used the word or instead of and. Corporations can have 2 domiciles, which is why I'm using the word and instead of or. But what is good about this rule statement is the student defines what headquarters means, which is good. That's essentially what they were trying to trick you with in part of this question. So it's great that this examinee expanded on it. Then I'm not going to read you all of this blue, but the examinee goes on to analyze where MedForms is incorporated in their principal place of business or headquarters, and likewise the company, all to reach the conclusion here in gray that the court should deny the company's motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. In other words, this examinee gets it right. Finally, to the third issue, the improper joinder claim. And again, you see our color coding, yellow, teal, and gray, showing you that this student followed the perfect IRAC format here. Now, what's interesting to me about this third issue, and in part why I picked this answer for us to discuss, is the examinee provides the wrong rule statement. Here, they were testing impleader, and the student did not analyze impleader and did not provide the correct impleader rule. Impleader is when a defendant brings in or impleads another defendant, basically claiming that this new defendant is liable to them in whole or in part, based upon the original claim. Here, that's not what's going on. MedForm did not properly bring in the company. There's no facts leading us to believe that the company would be liable in the event that MedForms is liable. In fact, the fact pattern tells us that MedForm is suing the company for breach of contract. So no, this is not proper impleader or joinder. So again, the reason why I want to point all of that out is because, again, this student gets it wrong. The rule statement is not what was technically being tested, and therefore the analysis was going to be off a little bit. However, the student's not that far off because the student reached the correct conclusion. They reached the conclusion that the motion to dismiss should be granted, and that is right, even though they technically did not provide the correct rule or analysis. So I think this just reinforces the idea that your answer doesn't have to be perfect to get a passing or sometimes even a high passing score. Remember, the big takeaway from crafting a response to an essay question is crafting your answer on the call to question and following the issue, rule, analysis, conclusion format. The easier your answer is to grade, the more likely it is to be higher scoring. So to recap, this examinee's answer is not perfect for all of the reasons I already mentioned, but the student had a decent to good understanding of the law. They had very clear headings or issue statements. The student directly answered each part of the question being tested or that was posed and followed proper format basically throughout. So again, this is what we're striving for. So hopefully going through this good representative student answer is helpful to you to give you a good idea about what you should be striving for when you practice.